Welcome to the Gaelan Trombley Show. You can find me on Facebook at Gaelan Trombley, on Instagram at Gaelan Trombley, and on YouTube at Gaelan Trombley. Spelling Gaelantrombley. Enjoy the show. On episode 24 of the Gaelan Trombley Show, Emily Alexander rejoins the podcast to talk about gut health, and we go a lot into different ways on how she would help certain types of people, whether you're trying to lose weight, gain weight, if you don't work out, if you do work out. We talk about different kind of elimination diets. We talk about sleep, and we also talk about her current Ollie or Olympic lifting cycle and how she's kind of approached that and how she's benefited from that over the last few months. So we hope you enjoy episode 24 of the Gaelan Trombley Show. Welcome to the Gaelan Trombley Show. Welcome to episode 24 of the Gaelan Trombley Show. 24, my favorite number. So I am pumped. This is a milestone for me because we just hit my favorite number. But I have a returning guest, Emily Alexander from Emily Alexander Nutrition LLC. We have her back on a solo episode, and she is going to kind of really dive deep into the nutritional aspect and kind of what she's very knowledgeable at. So, Emily, welcome back to the Gaelan Trombley Show. How you doing?
Good. Thanks. Happy to be here. Got some coffee and I'm good to go.
Early morning, yeah. So we're cranking this out pretty early. But for anybody that didn't listen, Emily was a few episodes back. So you go back, check her out, and listen there. We did more of her backstory today. We're kind of diving more into the I guess your topic, of health and nutrition. So. So kind of go into a couple things, in regards to, we've talked how you got into it, but like, I know your main big one was kind of talking about improving digestion in people. Mm-hmm. So if start off with that, then we'll just kind of go down into more nutritional topics.
Yeah. So, I mean, I really love general nutrition and health. And a lot of what I've seen with working with clients and through my nutrition course that I took, the program, we focused a lot on the foundations of health, and the biggest foundation of health is your gut and your digestion. And if that stuff's all funky and all over the place, then you're going to get a lot of unwanted health symptoms and stuff like that. So I really am pretty interested in helping people optimize their gut health and their microbiome. I think that'll help with a lot of people's overall health. So like our microbiome, if you don't know, it's a bunch of the colonies of bacteria in and on our body. So it's in our gut, but it's also in our mouth, our nose, throat, pretty much all over the place. And they're involved in lots of functions in our body. So they're kind of like our ecosystem that helps keep everything in homeostasis, and when it gets out of whack, you can see a lot of other stuff. So I really love focusing and keeping it simple and helping people focus on this foundation, and I see a lot of success with that.
So for improving digestion or gut health, what are the main, to kind of put it back into, because we're going to go, obviously technical, mm-hmm. and then I'll bring it back to layman's terms for me and for others, but yep. What is your why would people want to obviously improve their gut health, and what's the number, maybe the couple top ways they can fix their gut mm-hmm. health for just the average person walking around? If someone's listening to this and they say, man, I do have trouble with digestion, or I have trouble with a certain food group, or I have trouble with, obviously you can probably just eliminate that, but right. I'm sure you have better ideas or mm-hmm. different ways to kind of work around that, so they're maybe not totally getting away from it. But so what could somebody do to improve their health, or improve their digestion, and gut health? Okay,
so the first thing that people would do, so why you want to, like I said, it's really tied to everything. Sorry. Mental health, physical health, immunity, really anything you could think of. So starting with taking care of that is super important, just so everything else falls in line too. I think a lot of people could have some intestinal hyperpermeability going on, so that's just leaky gut essentially, which can lead to autoimmunity or increased risk for developing autoimmunity. So things you can do to help: chew your food fully, right? So you don't want to have to be drinking water when you're eating and feeling you have to wash it down. Because if we're chewing our food enough, then we're setting our digestive system up we're setting our digestive system up to be able to digest it better. So if it's got to digest whole food, it's going to take a lot longer. Eating in a relaxed state, which sounds easier than it is. So that means not eating at your desk, not eating in the car, or if you are, just really, really taking a few deep breaths. Because if our body's not relaxed, it's not ready to digest. That's kind of the last thing on its mind. It's thinking about running or doing whatever else we need to do. And it shuts digestion down.
What about, I know we talked about before, but water?
Water, yep. Water's super important just for keeping the cell membranes hydrated and your intestines hydrated, and that helps flush toxins out. So if you're not helping to eliminate things out of your body, then they're just staying in there.
So if I ever have and I know it's salty foods or something, so the perfect example, most nights I go through the evening and I don't drink anything. I always have water next to me at night. Just if I get thirsty, it's right there. But I always end up drinking water nights after having pizza. If I go have pizza or something at night, pizza's number one that I can think of, but guaranteed I'm waking up in the middle of the night chugging almost the entire glass of water that I have. And I think it's because of the sodium, right? Mm-hmm. Does that have anything to do with this? I mean, or is it just straight up the sodium is just you're probably just super dry, the salt and stuff from it is just making you thirsty because you're probably dehydrated at that point?
Yeah, that could be it. I've never had that happen, but
no. It's it is 100% going to happen. If I have pizza, I'm waking up middle of the night and chugging water.
Yeah, it could be. You could be the salt and you're just dehydrated.
Yeah, that must be it. I don't. But it's there's got to be something because there's a definite cause and effect. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just with pizza. I don't know why it's pizza, but it could be any kind of crappy food where you go out. But I think pizza's number one for me, but. The other thing, too, is when you talked about, eating quick. I struggle. That's one of my things just throughout the day. I am not... I probably would not be your best client because I do either two things. I eat super fast or I skip meals. Just that's... During the day, I have, downtime for lunch in my calendar, but the odds I actually take a lunch is only if I'm meeting somebody to go out to lunch. Other than that, good chance I'm skipping lunch. Which is bad, I know, because I used to be... very good with nutrition. I used to follow it very well. I was much stricter. Mm-hmm. Now, just with trying to prep and stuff. And again, it's excuses. I got to get better at it. But it's just something this point in my life, I just haven't prioritized it enough.
Right. That's what
I've really fallen off the wagon in the sense of, overall, I eat decent.
Yep.
But when I used to eat 80, 90% very good, kind of measuring what I ate and eating kind of the correct foods. Now it's probably 70-30, not really measuring anything.
Yep.
More eyeball, but then just kind of trying to pick the better options. But my biggest thing is just not eating. So I guess, can you talk about that? We talked, I think we talked before, but trying to get, I think, actually, why don't we do this? With people that are trying to lose weight, people that are trying to, so why don't we start with that group? If there's people out there that are heavier, out of shape, want to lose weight, want to lose fat, which is a lot of America, go into that topic, because one of the worst things you can do, from my understanding with that perspective, is not eat. You know, when people just say, I'm going to eat under 1,000 calories a day, kind of go into why that's not good. So if you were to take someone that is maybe male or female that's got to go, maybe they're 30% body fat, is that probably a good number?
Yeah.
Okay. 30, I don't know, 40. I don't know what it kind of balances out, but someone that wants to go from there maybe down to 15, sub 20% body fat. Is that reasonable? Those are...
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends.
Or drop 30, 40 pounds, 50 pounds.
Yeah,
whatever.
So we'll say that. That's a little easier to picture. So And they're not eating enough.
Well, just in general.
Very much.
If you were to, if someone was to say, "Hey, Emily, I'm 40 pounds overweight," maybe it's a middle-aged lady. She's 35 to 50. Maybe it's a guy the same age. They're 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight. They know they're overweight. They want to get. I mean, they don't want to be, this absolute ripped person, but they want to get down to a healthy body weight without taking I hate the BMI. I'm sure you hate BMI too. But take away the BMI because that's bullshit to me. But but how would you get them down to where they could get to that, where they could get to a healthy level, where they could feel energized and all that? Like, what would be a prescription for them on that?
Okay. So I would start and see. Well, normally, so I'd look at their diet, and my protocol that I like to use is to add in before we put things off limits. So what I like to do is say, okay, we're going to try to crowd out all of the bad stuff with the good stuff. So you're full and you don't necessarily need or want, and you get used to having all the colors. So I like to start people with saying, okay, try to aim for 2 colors at each meal, which is just a good eyeball to say that you're getting fruits and veggies in at each meal. I would also look to make sure they're eating enough, because people for a long time will chronically diet and then they're not at a point where their body's ready to lose body fat. So if someone comes to me and they say, well, I'm eating probably around 1,400, 1,500 calories, then I'd say, all right, well, we're going to have to start adding more food in. It doesn't mean they have to track, but just adding more healthy foods in. That's going to, and it's not going to be a quick drop for a lot of people. Making sure they're hydrated, like we just talked about water. Water can, if you're dehydrated, like I said, your body's not flushing stuff, so it's holding all these toxins and holding toxins in the fat tissue. And so making sure people are hydrated, which will help when people do start to lose weight. A lot of times people don't feel so great because the toxins they've been holding are being released into their bodies. So making sure those are getting out. I would also make sure they're moving. It doesn't have to necessarily be working out, but going for walks each day or finding some kind of movement is also really important. I would look at maybe some food intolerances and see if there's stuff going on there. So I would just you want to focus on whole foods, so eliminating processed foods, and just crowding out the bad stuff with the good food and keeping a balance. So like you said, you do 70-30 or whatever that ratio is. I think that's important for overall like mental
sanity.
Sanity, yeah, right? Because you don't want to swing completely the other direction. But weight loss it's a hard thing because it's so individual, and figuring out what people are doing and the reason behind it. And just, if you're buying food, really like looking and making sure, okay, if there's an ingredient on here that I don't recognize, like I probably don't need to eat it, right? If you don't know what it is, then.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of simplify it down to my progression as an eater.
Yeah.
I started to get, after I got out of high school, probably like, I was probably 20 maybe. I kind of I started to kind of get into trying to figure out how to eat better. Started to get back like I wasn't like terrible. I was 20, but I just wasn't playing sports anymore. Yep. I was like, I just got to really, I know if I don't play sports and don't eat correctly, I'm not going to be in good shape. So I kind of took a liking to that. Now, I nerded out a little. I did read a lot of nutrition books, and I read a lot of things. And right now, I mean, as me 2019 compared to me 4 or 5 years ago, I know less now, but I think I have a general understanding of what I need to do. But so basically back then I started, as with anything, because I started to lift weights and stuff. So they were kind of like, I remember the first time I looked at it and like, you need this much protein and this much carbs. And I was like, that's like, I was totally out of whack. Like my ratios were all over the place. So that was like I remember it just being so hard to look at and being, I got to eat that much protein. Right.
And that's, I think, a lot of people, especially when you're losing weight or wanting to lose weight, protein is super satiating. So making sure you've got good protein sources, which I'm happy you just brought that up, because how people structure meals is really important. So making sure you've got enough protein so that you stay full, because if your meals are mostly carbohydrates, then you're going to get that spike and then you're going to crash. Same goes with healthy fats too, making sure that you've got a good ratio of those in meals. is really important.
Yeah, and so I just basically from like looking at that and was like protein. I'm like, breakfast was like a banana with cereal. You know what I mean? So all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I gotta have like eggs, or I gotta have something that's more of a protein source. And then you can have like obviously you have fruit on the side or oatmeal or something like that, so, which is kind of what I still have to this day. But so I went from that to kind of dabbled in the paleo diet until that is tough. I think the fall is strict, and then it's basically kind of morphed all the way through to now. I'm very big on which I would like to do is, and what I try to do. Again, if I prioritize it correctly.
Right.
So it's totally on me. If I prioritize it correctly, I usually track my macros. And I track my macros with the idea if I can eat 80 to 90% good and 10 to 20% lenient, I'm overall pretty good.
Yep.
I really don't care. I'm not dieting down for a bodybuilding show or anything like that. I really don't care. I've never really cared what I look like. I just want to be healthy and feel good. So my biggest thing is when I'm eating, if I'm not, sometimes I feel sluggish. Like right now, my food is not great, and I can find other things that are bothering me that weren't there one before. Even just like allergy kind of stuff, or even like
interesting.
Maybe just something with like breathing and things like that. And I know it's minor. Like I'm not. If somebody looked at me, they wouldn't be like, "Oh my God, you're totally out of shape." I'm better than still a lot of people, but
you're tuned in to your body.
Yeah,
so
but compared to where my expectations or where my old kind of what I set for myself, I'm below that. I'm below where I think I should be, because I know, and I know it takes work, but it's not. If people realize like eating well and I think is not a hard thing. You got to prioritize it, but once you prioritize it, it's not that hard. Go a month and it starts to become a habit. And So to go back on where I was saying, now I've gotten to the point where I just am very big on proteins, fats, and carbs, and just balancing them out. To me, if I can hit the right ratios, that is a great. If not, I just eyeball it. Like I try to have meat or protein. I try to have a carb source, and then depending on what's between those two, I may add fat to it. Meaning, if I'm having like a steak and vegetables and rice or something, I'm probably not going to add an extra fat source to it, just knowing the steak has enough in there. But that's me. Usually that's pretty good, and I kind of hit my balance there. So I think when you talked about the ratios, and you talked about not adding stuff in, not necessarily pulling things out so people don't go crazy. We'll get into other kind of diets later on, but I think that's one of the biggest things is if I count my macros, even if I have something that's not great, but I can still kind of count it in the macros, and I put that in that 10 to 20%, it keeps me as a human okay.
Right.
Like if I go to like a networking function and have a couple drinks, I'm not going to sit there and kill myself because I had a couple drinks out socially, because I'm like, oh my God, that threw my numbers off for one day of the week. Like I'm okay,
Well, and it makes it's one of those things that you want what you can't have. So as soon as you tell yourself, oh, I can't have my favorite thing in the world, or okay, I have this thing coming up, and you stress out about it, and you're like, I can't because my macros, then you're just going to want it even more, and it could lead to a binge, or it could lead to just being like, all right, screw it, I'm going to do whatever I want, and it doesn't matter. Which I think is pretty common.
So when you work with somebody, say it's somebody that wants to lose weight, we talked about that. We talked about like what you look for, but like do you focus more on just not really getting into like the mac or the numbers, but just introducing foods in?
Yeah.
And that's step one. So just getting comfortable eating more vegetables, comfortable eating more probably lean meats and things like that. Yeah.
So I can think of a few of the clients I have, but so one of them, her digestion was all funky, but so we're just focusing on adding like foods like beets or sprouts during the week. And so setting, like what I do is I have them set a goal that seems pretty manageable. So you don't have to eat 3 beets every day, or you don't have to eat this every single day. Like pick 2 or 3 days of the week and just starting there and starting small so that you can accomplish that goal. And then we look at it and say, okay, for a few weeks you were able to hit, you're adding in a veggie at each meal for whatever, 3 days a week. So let's up it to 4 days a week. Or you had a protein at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Awesome. Now can we add a little bit of protein into your snack or something like that? So just setting small, manageable goals and helping people say, like, okay, where can I add in beneficial things? Like, I've got, like, we look at, okay, what are you doing really well? And what can we add into that to make it even better? Yeah,
I like that approach, because then eventually it ends up being a switch. Because they'll be like, I have to eat this, but I won't have time, or I'm not hungry enough to eat the other junk, and that eventually gets stripped out of the meal. That's good. I've never heard that before. That's cool. So on the flip side, if somebody was to, we just talked about before, which is also the under eating aspect, meaning somebody is. I kind of know this space a little bit better. And I know it sounds crazy because I I know that the people coming out of shape, but at CrossFit, because that's where I go to the gym, but I know this happens in gyms all over the world. Like when you have people on the opposite spectrum, where when I started going to the gym, it was the same thing. I would say underweight, and I see a lot of people that come in. We get a lot of runners that come in, and they're very tiny people, meaning like there's no muscle mass to them. They have very poor. They're very poor when it comes to like flexibility kind of things. Like they can't get in certain positions. They're very tight hip flexors. Yeah, mobility. Thank you. Mobility is really poor. Their strength is very poor. They can obviously run fast, but when you start adding other aspects, I think. So when that happens, you look at a lot of them. It's like, well, you have to start gaining weight. You have to put on muscle mass. So if you talk like somebody that, or the person that works out all the time and is eating like somebody that is barely just staying afloat. So what do you talk about that? Because I know you're kind of in the same space with your gym, but like, how would you approach someone in that aspect? And usually people in that aspect understand nutrition. They just don't understand, I guess, the quantity. They understand quality, just not quantity.
Quantity, I think, is really hard for people to understand, and it's confusing. And there's a lot of people who are chronically under eating don't realize, because your body gets used to it. So they're like, well, I'm not that hungry, so I'm fine, or I've been doing this forever. And it's really beneficial to switch up how much we're eating, and we really shouldn't be in a chronic dieting phase, because that's another stress added onto our already stressful lives. So if we're dieting for more than 2 months, honestly, 3 months, then I would say it's probably time to up it. But if you don't even realize that you're dieting, so when someone comes to me and says, yeah, this is kind of what I eat an apple and a coffee for breakfast, I might have a salad for lunch and then a salad for dinner, and there's not really much in there, I'm gonna say, all right, well, if your goals are to get stronger or move faster, or just honestly change your body composition and overall health, then we're going to need to add in more food so your body's not hanging on to everything that you put in it, because that's what happens. Yeah,
and that's what I think I found at one time too, where just trying to figure out like how to gain weight. There was like 4 years ago, I think I might have told you, I tried to gain weight for strength. I totally accomplished it. I'll tell you, it was like a full-time job.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to get roughly 4,000 calories in a day.
Yeah, it's a lot to eat.
And that's a lot of food. And it ended up being like, and it was still busy. So like at night, it was like a big meal. And then it was like an hour later, there was like I was making like 1,000+ calorie shake, which took me almost 45 minutes to drink, because it's drinking like an ice cream. It's very thick. And you're literally trying to finish all this in a day.
Yeah.
Then you go to bed and you wake up, and then you got to eat another big meal, and you're not hungry in the morning. So you're almost overfeeding.
Yeah.
But I put on, probably in about 3 months, I went from 175 to like, I was 189 on New Year's, and then I started cutting down for the Open. Within a month, I was back down to like 175. Now, granted, I was a leaner 175, and I was a stronger 175, but I wasn't able to really keep that weight on.
Yeah.
I didn't do a drastic, it wasn't like I did a very structured gain and a very structured cut.
Yeah.
It was the leanest I've ever been. It was the strongest I've ever been, the best in shape I've ever been. But it takes a lot. But at that point, even with dropping stuff, I was still eating a decent amount. I wasn't eating 4,000, but I was definitely eating close to 3,000.
Right, because you had already ramped your metabolism up enough to handle all that food. And that's something that I've really been trying to educate a lot of people in my gym on, is that you want to be able to eat as much food as you can and stay where you like and feel good about what you are.
Yeah.
So and that happens, and sometimes when the hard part for people is when they've been chronically eating not enough and they start to add in, you might gain a little bit of weight, or you might it might stall for a bit because your body's like, okay, now we're like being fed, this is great, and then it'll drop down. But giving it that. And that's where not necessarily paying attention to the scale is important too, because sometimes that can just mess with your mind. So just saying, okay, I'm not going to step on it, and I'm just going to focus on how I'm feeling and how my like performance is feeling in the gym. And if people are trying to like gain muscle or weight, I say like pick foods with less volume that pack more calories in. So like that's where your rices or your avocados or your nuts are really great, because you don't have to eat as much of them to get enough in.
Yep.
Where like if you're dieting or trying to lose weight, adding a lot of like volume foods like sweet potatoes, butternut squashes, greens, like that's really great because it takes up a lot of volume and you feel satiated from it. Yeah,
my hardest thing with dieting or with anything is getting vegetables, because my problem is I'm an undereater, 100% undereater, and if I know I have to hit 2,800 calories on the day, I would say my baseline. I was working with another, I think I told you about her, local lady that same thing, very good at this stuff, and my baseline level I think brings me to like 26 to 2,800 calories, like baseline, meaning like not like maintain.
If you were to like stay in bed all day and not do anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, it's with working out, but it's kind of like, it's me trying to like maintain where I am. Guys, I'm not like gaining weight or trying to like lose weight. I should be honest, that might be kind of like semi trying to lean out a little bit, is usually right about 26 to 28. I think my maintaining would be close to 3, and then if I tried to gain, I'd have to be like 35 to 4,000. But when I did the, where was I going with that? If I did the numbers on my baseline numbers, trying to eat like broccoli or trying to eat vegetables.
You have to eat a lot.
Well, yeah, and I'm an undereater to begin with, so I'm like, I don't want to add broccoli. I'm just going to add a bunch of rice and a bunch of stuff because I just want to get to that number as quick as possible. Like even at night, I wouldn't say I'm like I like food, but I'm not like a foodie kind of person. Like I can eat bland food Monday through Friday and have absolutely no problem with it, because food to me is just like, get food. It keeps me energized. It gets me through the day. I don't look at food at like every meal's got to be this great tasting thing. I'll eat bland chicken with. I mean, the stuff I eat is just, it's quick. It's like if I can eat something quick.
I feel like if you could have a pill and just say, okay,
that was fine. If I could sip coffee all day and just take a pill and I knew I was getting my nutrients, I would 100% do it, because I don't I love food. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not reliant on having to like taste something great at noon on a Tuesday. Like I'm good. Like let me just keep running and. But like, so if I'm starting to add my worst thing is I just don't eat as much vegetables as I should. I love vegetables. I will eat vegetables if I have them, but just trying to like make vegetables, it's so much easier just to like make some rice real quick. So I eat a ton of rice, and usually nights is like some type of meat and some type of rice. I would say majority of the time.
Do you soak your rice before you?
I do not.
You should do that.
To be honest, you'll probably hate this too. My rices are all like the microwave quick things, because I trust me, like if I get home at like 8:30 at night, last thing I want to do is
cook rice for 45 minutes.
Cook anything. So I just like heat that up, heat leftovers, and I'll eat that. So I'm not good. Trust me, I'm not like I just don't prioritize it into my day like I should. I have to. It's really like, it bothers me. It's like one of that and like the gym, which is I'm having a hard time going to doing both of them consistently, and it does bother me, but it's like I just haven't found a way to really totally hack that yet.
Making sure you're getting veggies in, and even if it's, you just try to have a color at each meal that's not like white or brown, you know. So we just started a nutrition challenge at my gym, and that's one of the like points of the point system, and I wanted to make something that was like positive and just gets people trying new foods and doing it. So one of the point systems is if they have 2 colors at every meal, they get like 3 points for the day or something like that. So that's a nice way to say like, okay, like even if it's adding an apple on the side, right? You get some red, and then you've got peppers or something.
Are you finding it's pretty well accepted, or you know, are people like open to nutrition stuff? I know every once in a while, like again, I'm coming from like a total gym setting where
that's fine.
Where some people are people don't have the problem with working out. People have the problem with diets and eating because, again, to me, working out is the easy part. You go in an hour a day, maybe total in a week, 4 to 5 hours a week. There's a lot more time that you're within reach of food or having food.
Yeah.
And I mean, if we talk, I'm going by the fitness pyramid that nutrition is the base, but obviously if you are looking at it from a standpoint of people usually say like nutrition's 80-90% of it. Like it truly is, but
it is.
Are people receptive to the idea of nutrition challenges or not even, I got a pet peeve of mine. I get the nutrition challenge thing, but I don't like diets and nutrition challenges because I get it's because it's trying to get people on. I like the idea of a nutrition challenge if it's to get people into a healthy living and they would sustain it. If it's like a
30-day,
the whole 30 thing, I'm like, so you're going to eat good for 30 days and then you're going to go back to eating shit. Like you got to really figure out what, you got to change the lifestyle. So I think, like you said, breaking habits and making or putting them into habits is something you have to do, not a nutrition challenge for a whole 30.
Right.
Which that's always bothers me when I see people do like, I'm going to do the juice cleanse or I'm going to do a whole 30 or I'm going to do, we'll get into it, but like the keto and vegetarian and vegan and things like that. I'm like, unless you're going to really go all in and make it a habit, all that stuff is just like a Band-Aid for a month and then you're going back. You got to to me, you got to change the problem. Like, you got to go to the source of the problem, not the Band-Aid over it to just kind of cover it.
Well, and so and that's why I love, you look at like what the root cause is. So why are you doing that juice cleanse? And then, but what is happening when you break that and you go have a cheeseburger and French fries, right? So if you did any positive stuff, that might be negating it. And I agree with you on the nutrition challenges. Because people, it's not creating lasting habits. So I'm actually really excited about the one we created because it's focusing on adding 2 colors in every meal. So it's these small sustainable things that you can say, okay, like, and then it helps people realize that some of the meals they already are having are healthy. So it's helping identify that. That?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
And then the other way is just focusing on whole foods. So I told people, I'm like, you don't have to eliminate if you're going to go out for ice cream or you're going to do those things. It doesn't have to eliminate it, but just like setting up and still getting in your whole foods for the day. So if it's from nature, whether it's animal, plant, whatever. We also talked about getting enough sleep and water in. So those things are also really important. Like sleep is, I think, just as foundational as nutrition is. Coming from the person who didn't really get much sleep last night. But so that if you're not sleeping, your metabolism's all over the place, your energy, your mood, everything is. So I think you're spot on with when people do the nutrition challenges or whatever, the 30-day things. A lot of times the habits don't necessarily stick.
Yeah, and actually what you just said, do you deal a lot with people with sleep?
Yeah.
I mean, probably not from like a nerding out of sleep, but the idea of like, 8 hours a day is I think kind of the accepted number. The other thing that I'm curious about, because I probably Monday through Friday get I try to shoot for 7 hours. Sometimes it's like 6.5 maybe, and I always sleep very well. Like my best time, I think I've said this before, is 9 hours.
Yep.
Like 9 hours, I feel great.
Yeah.
8 hours, I feel fine. I mean, I feel fine. I don't feel great, but I feel normal.
Fine.
7 hours, I feel fine. I can get through the day and be good. 6 hours is when I really start to see a decline in my performance in everything. Just slow, tired, groggy. The other thing though is if I sleep 8 hours, I saw this the other day. If you go our optimal time to go to bed is roughly like 10, 9 to 11-ish, like in that range. Our optimal time to get up is like that 5 to 7, time. So I find like when I say, like last night, I probably slept 7.5 hours, which was probably like 11:30 midnight to 7 this morning. I don't feel as good as if I would have went to bed at 10 and woke up at 6.
Yep.
And whatever I was hearing or reading or listening to, they said that the time that you go to sleep also matters, where like you just think like 8 hours, but like if you go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning and sleep till 9, it's 8 hours, but it's not the same 8 hours as 10 to 6. Do you have any experience in that, or is that? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you agree with it, but I don't know if there's any like fact based. But I agree. Like if I get to bed at 10, I feel great the next morning. Yeah.
I mean, I've definitely experienced that, and I think I've seen it a lot, and I'm pretty sure it has to do with like your circadian rhythm and the light outside. I'm not sure of the exact science behind it, but it's funny though how it.
Yeah, it's kind of, well, it's kind of like calorie. Not all calories are created equal. It's kind of like not all hours of sleep are created equal. Where I think that if I'm, like the sleep thing. If I can get to bed, if I can be like best nights. If I'm in bed at 9:30,
I was just gonna say 9:30. If I'm
in bed at 9:30 and like I'm lights out by 10, I usually sleep. I feel good the next. Even if I got to wake up at like 5 the next morning or 4:45 to go to the gym, like I feel decent. But it's like when I go to bed at like 11, like 11's pushing it for me because I just don't feel great the next day. But I agree. There's times if I want to go to the gym for 5:30 a.m., I'm getting up 4:45, 5 o'clock.
Yep.
There's times if I go to bed at 11, like 11:30, that's not happening because I'm sleeping 5 hours. So I'll just sleep in because I'd rather have the 7 hours of sleep versus.
And at that point too, and that's a good point that I wanted to talk about. Now we talked about sleep, but if you're not sleeping enough, then not that your workout is pointless, but your body's not set up to recover or like build anything because it's not rested enough.
Yeah. Like I think sleep is way more sleep and nutrition are way more optimal than working out. If you had to pick a hierarchy.
If you slept 4 hours, you probably shouldn't go to the 5:30 in the morning class or something just because it's not going to.
I usually just skip it because I think the extra 2 hours can do more for me than going in the gym and doing burpees and push-ups and whatever else. So no, that makes total sense. The sleep thing is like when I talk about going to like the gym. I can get up and go to the gym. My biggest thing, like my day from my next day starts the night before. So if I can get to bed between 9:30 and 10, and there's sometimes I can. There's sometimes that I force myself to. There's sometimes I get home late and I'm like, by the time I like wind down and like get everything kind of picked up and cleaned up, and if I have like nothing, I might have some stuff I got to kind of finish that night. If not, like there's times that even like 10 o'clock, I'm like wide awake. I'm like, I'm not ready for bed. And that's tough. So basically the odds that I go to the gym or get up at that time is fully dependent on when I go to bed the night before. Yep. So to me, like the day after always starts like it's a crunch time at that night to like literally get into bed and just force myself to go to sleep. So that's the hardest part. That has been the hardest part is just getting to bed early enough to get up early enough. And problem is when you don't work out, I undereat because I'm just not hungry.
You're not hungry.
When I work out, I am hungry. So I make sure that I eat and I'm well fed throughout the day. And to be honest, like tracking numbers, which is what I do, the tracking number part, I never feel like I'm limiting myself because I like to me it's like every day is kind of a lofty number to hit. And I mean it's within staying in the like if you stay within the ratios, that's a lofty number to hit. Like yes, could you go to Five Guys and crush all your calories in one sitting? You could. But if you're really focusing on eating the good, like the well-proportioned stuff, like trust me, I get home at night and I still have to have a pretty big dinner to hit my numbers. So I never feel like I'm under eating. I never feel deprived. If I want to sit there and have I don't do it, but like if you wanted to have, like, well, I guess I do, like kind of like a granola bar or something like that, or a Cliff Bar or something that's probably not the best for you, but you can still track it within your numbers. And like if it's part of that 10-20% rule, it's not the end of the world. Like it's better to have an apple and like some nuts or something versus that, because same kind of same kind of macronutrients, probably better quality.
Right. And you're also getting less, like, I mean, if you're just kind of eat to eat and you don't care about, not that you don't care about the way food tastes, but like you say, like you could just pop a pill and you would get all your nutrients and it'd be fine. Eating a bar or a shake might not do the same thing to you, but with a lot of people, they don't feel like they just ate a meal, even though it was a meal's worth of calories or those things. So that's where, like, it is really hard to overeat. Not really hard, but it's harder to overeat on whole foods because you have to eat a lot of them. And if you're not adding all of the processed sugar and the hyper palatability junk that goes in there, then your body pretty much kind of naturally tells you, like, all right, I've had enough of carrots or whatever I'm eating right now, that, like, I don't feel like I need to eat the whole bag.
No, I 100% agree on that. I think that's one of the things that people just get to more whole foods, meaning like fruits, vegetables, basically the outside of the grocery store. I know that people have said that before, because you go right through produce into the meats, into, you know, the eggs and back around. I mean, you can do some real damage eating that. I mean, good damage, but like if you go and you focus on that kind of stuff. I mean, yes, I throw rice in more from like the athletic standpoint, but if I was like really trying to like lose weight, I would be crushing the vegetable section, because you can eat a ton of vegetables. And even if, like, I get it, like some have sugar, like carrots are more heavy in sugar than cauliflower, but they're still phenomenal for you.
They're so good, and that's where getting all the different colors in is so important, because you're getting all the micronutrients. So if you do have trouble eating vegetables, like, figure out how to mix them in, whether you like puree them in a sauce or something, or you do like chop them up and mix them in with your rice, whether it's like summer squash, something you just like put in there. So it's figuring out ways to sneak them in. But yeah, shopping the perimeter is really, really good, and it's going to save you money in the long run too, because it might not seem like it, but packaged foods cost more in the long run.
What would you tell somebody that it might consider themselves a foodie? Meaning, like, they come to you, they say, hey, I want to clean up my eating, but they're used to every meal having these sauces and all these like things on it to, like, if you go to a nice restaurant and they have a steak, or they have a chicken, or they have some type of fish meal, like, they're like, I'm getting chicken or fish or whatever, but then all of a sudden you overlay, you know, you got an Alfredo, you know, noodles with Alfredo sauce, but it's got shrimp in it, shrimp Alfredo. Well, I'm having shrimp. Well, you're having a bunch of bad stuff with it. Like, how do you get people over the hump of, hey, eating good is too bland, eating good is like, what's your hacks? Because I disagree. To me, I think once you start eating well, it's not that it's bland, you're just you're changing your palate to something that's better, versus going, hey, put the Alfredo sauce on, hey, put the cheese sauce on, hey, put the X, Y, and Z crap on that masks the actual taste of the real food, because you rather taste the condiment that's on top of it. So what's your hack for that? Like,
so helping people find ways to make their food taste good, essentially?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's definitely going to be an adjustment, because your taste buds are used to how sweet or salty or sugary whatever you're eating tastes. So I think of it too like coffee. So if someone they're drinking a ton of sugar, you just cut down slowly, and finding sauces that we can make that might have better ingredients in it. So if they like an Alfredo, maybe we make one with good quality dairy in it, or we make one with out of cashews or nuts or something, or we find kind of like a lower calorie like salsa or marinara or something like that we can like trade and upgrade, rather than, and then using spices. So like some like pink Himalayan salt, because it's got a lot of good minerals in it, and salt and pepper are great. Adding lemon juice is great. So just figuring out different flavor profiles that they like, and kind of upgrading their choices.
I think spices go a long way. I think you can do a lot, like, we've done it before with just like hot sauce, because hot sauce is very minimal. Salsa, people don't think of salsa as a condiment.
I love salsa as a condiment.
Yeah, salsa is one of the best ones. I mean, not just for chip. Like, I love chips and salsa. It's one of my favorite things. But I mean, just putting that on stuff. I used to put that just on like just normal food, because it's tomatoes at the end of the day.
Right.
I mean, it's got like some tomato paste, but overall it's pretty clean. Hot sauce, we did a lot. I remember doing kind of making like a barbecue chicken salad. We put a little bit of mayo in, but it was like olive oil mayo, which I think is better than the canola oil.
Yeah, you don't want canola oil.
Yeah, so we had the olive oil one, but you put like just a little bit of that to add, you know, a little bit of the kind of the substance and the fat. But when you're putting it with, in that case, just chicken breast, which is very low in fat, it just kind of adds a good balance. And the hot sauce adds a lot of, and trust me, that was, and actually diced in red onions in that.
Nice.
It was a very good, you wouldn't think about it, but it was a very clean, basically 4 ingredients with everything involved. We would like mass make that, and it would be so good. But I think a lot of it is that. I
Yep.
think a lot of it is, without going into, like, I didn't really do a lot of butter. I mean, if I do butter, I try to do like a Kerrygold butter or just like a grass-fed butter. But if I can do that with like, so every once in a while, I'm making like a fish meal. I want to have butter on it just because it cooks better too.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you have like some good like grass-fed butters, I believe it's pretty
like
good for you.
Superfood.
Yeah, it's a very good source of food. It's not like the margarine or like that kind of crappy.
Yeah, stay away from
can't
that.
believe it's not butter.
Yeah.
Like, it's not butter.
It's
so
not butter.
Eat
Don't
it. Yeah.
eat it.
Yeah, I actually read something. I still have it on my phone from a long time ago. It said on the it was like it was like a meme or like a quote card before those were popular.
Yeah.
And it said, if you ever see fat free, basically it just means chemical shitstorm, because there's so much stuff. There's a reason why it still tastes good,
right?
And they're extracting the fat out of it,
right? Because fat is flavor. So if that's what makes food taste good.
Well, like it was funny. Like, I grew up drinking skim milk. I won't drink that shit anymore. I can't drink it. And I always thought people that drink whole milk, they're like, oh, it's unhealthy. And I'm like, no. If I drink milk, it's whole milk. But again, we have more almond milk at the house than we do whole milk. Now, granted, I will still drink whole milk, especially when I was trying to like gain weight, because it was a cheap calorie source and it was a pretty good ratio of calories. I would drink it, and like right now, we're trying to give it a little bit more to our son to kind of keep weight on him, you know. But at the end of the day, when I get away from milk, because I don't drink milk that often, and then I get milk back in, I get stuffed up. I'm not I wouldn't say I'm allergic to it. I don't have like a dairy intolerance, but if I start eating that, or if I eat ice cream and I haven't had it for a while, my sinuses will start flaring up a little bit.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't know if that's, maybe I do have but I think part of it is just because I've kind of pushed it out of my diet. When I introduce it back in, it kind of like,
it can be a little inflaming.
It will stuff me up a little bit more.
Yeah. Full fat dairy is really good. And the other thing with the full fat is it helps you regulate your hunger. So people won't, not necessarily won't overeat, but people see a big benefit from adding in more fats, whether it's animal or plant-based, like an avocado or a nut. Just, it's really good.
What do you think percentage of your diet should be fat?
Oh, it ranges completely.
But like, if you were, because what I always look at is like, you have the extremes, you have the keto people, you have the other people which I just think is absolute bullshit throughout the years, of the people with, the low, high carb, low fat diet, which we know is a joke. I'm not against, trust me, I eat a ton of carbs. I eat more carbs than any of my food groups, but I also eat fat and eat protein, so I balance it out. But I always looked at fat as being roughly 30% of your diet.
Yeah, I think that's usually a good
ballpark.
Obviously,
it could sway. But that's not getting like, to me, I've never been afraid of eating good fats, because I know there's the benefit of fat. Could you actually argue that if you had to pick one food group to probably not cut out, it would be fat?
I don't know. That's
Is
hard.
that because it's tough? Because they all have their own.
They'll have their own like important parts, which is why they're the macronutrients, right? So that we need such large quantities of them. I think so fats are really important for hormone health, for vitamin and mineral absorption. So if you're not having those, you might be setting yourself up for some vitamin deficiencies. Energy, those are like our long-lasting energy, where like carbs are quick lasting. I do think that a majority of the population, especially if they're not super active, would benefit from having more fats in their diet. I say that if they have trouble digesting fats, that's where sometimes people like get a lot of motion sickness, or they feel like queasy and nauseous after eating a high fat meal. Their gallbladder might need some additional support to digest fats. But I think that a majority of the population would benefit from becoming more fat adapted, not necessarily keto, but increasing fats in their diet.
And for people that don't know, dietary fat is way different than body fat. Because I think people have that stigma in their head, well, I'm eating fat, that's going to turn into fat. I'm like, it's actually the opposite.
Right.
Like the processed foods, the sugars. Like sugars was what kills you. And what I find now is great, I think this has to do with society and stuff, which is, So more with the idea, just going to kind of go a little bit out, but it'll come back to full circle. So like back in the day, all the high carb, low fat was, I believe, from everything I've read and seen, and it makes sense to me, was basically like a propaganda to increase the agricultural industry of or the processed food. Like I think it had to do not agricultural, but it had to do a lot with politics.
Yeah.
With trying to push certain things, so people made money if they bought. It's kind of like Coca-Cola.
Like,
Warren Buffett makes money when you're drinking Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is absolutely terrible.
It's garbage for you.
Yeah, like you're literally pouring like acid down your throat kind of deal. So like, but you take that back in the day when it was very much a very I think politically driven, money driven campaign for people, and the problem was where else was there to dispute it? You didn't. It was pushed out to you on the national news, which was very limited back in the day, a couple channels, to now go to 2010 to 2019, where this is you could consider this a radio show. Like it's a way for me, anybody in the world could listen to this. But you take about like podcasts, you take YouTube, and you take Facebook and Instagram. All these people that understand now can actually push out the correct information. So you're really starting to see a shift of people being like, dude, no, like low fat, high carb does not work. Like does not work at all. Like you got to balance. Now, I think there's the extremos where, like to me, we talked before, but keto, which is limiting carbs, vegans or vegetarians are pretty much limiting a lot of the protein sources. I would think there's obviously a way you can get protein, and then you have vegans which eliminate. I mean, they just animal products. They just eat a lot of. I don't like things that are genetically modified. Like I don't mess with soy. I don't mess with tofu. I don't mess with whatever garbage like meatless burger.
Yeah.
Like to me, that just why would we? But what's your thoughts on those extreme diets where you totally take out carbs, you totally take out, I say totally, like vegetarians, I know you have you have your beans and you have your eggs and stuff, but you're taking out a major source of, because animal protein has a lot of the essential amino acids that you need. But then you have, and yet to me, you have the vegans, which I get it, you're doing it from a health standpoint, or not health standpoint, an ethical standpoint. But to me, it's like, I get it, but like, there's humans in nature, the circle of life, Lion King, circle of life, like, we're part of that circle of life. Like, no, animals have to die. It's that's why you see like the shark is going to eat smaller fish, and the lion's going to chase down an antelope, like, or whatever, a gazelle. Like, they need to do it. That's how they survive. So what's your thought process on those? I call them, I don't want to say extreme diets, but what do you elimination diets? Or
they're technically an elimination diet because you're eliminating one main food group. I think that I like to say that like our diets can cycle. So you want to go plant-based for a little while and see how you feel, and then you want to go higher fat, maybe keto, and see how you feel, and then you drop the fats down and you add higher carbs, and kind of going where your body's at, because where we are nutrition-wise today is different than we will be in 3 months probably, because our bodies are catching up and always changing. So I think it can be really beneficial to cycle through it. There hasn't been a 100% vegan healthy culture found. Like through the history, there was never a vegan culture, and you can be missing a lot of the good benefits that you get from animal proteins, like the collagen or the CLA or amino acids, but everyone's so different, so someone could feel better with more fats, but I just think that you should be trying to find your middle ground, but you can experiment and cycle through it, and that's where stuff like, okay, for the next 30 days, I'm going to just try to eat plant-based, or for the next 30 days after that, I might try to add more fats or more carbohydrates or those things. I think a lot of people see benefit from elimination diets because so with vegan or with keto, I think like you're eliminating a lot of your options for processed stuff. So like the biggest thing here when people go vegan, it's like, okay, well now I don't go out for ice cream, or I don't go out and get these cakes or these packaged things because I can't anymore. I can't have them, which is beneficial in one way, but then you're cutting out all of the good stuff. Even if you're vegetarian, I think it sets you up a little bit better because you can still get the eggs, which are so good for you. Like you don't really get choline anywhere else, and those are really in eggs. And you can still, if you eat fish, that's a great source of omega-3s and protein. And but you eliminate all the other options for like going out for junk. And it's kind of the same with keto too. You eliminate the ability to say like, okay, I'm gonna have this processed bread or like cookie or something or pasta, and then your only options really. And I mean, there's people who do keto bad, like. Not bad, but they just focus on like, I'm going to eat all this cheese and this whatever, and they're not like trying to get all the micronutrients and focusing on that. So
yeah, I have some people that I know do the keto diet here and there, but and to be honest, there's a couple examples of some people that have done the keto diet. They would tell you they were overweight and they've lost a substantial amount of weight. I don't believe in the keto diet. I just don't like the elimination part of it. I think because our bodies have evolved. They have evolved, but they've evolved based on those nutrients. Now, again, I'm not an expert on any of this. This is just my belief. But the people that are doing the keto diet, to me, they're getting to the point like when they've started to they've got over the big hump. They've lost their 30 pounds, 40 pounds, that first big wave of weight. But now I think that's when you have to get with someone like you or someone like where you get a better balance of nutrition where it's like, okay, listen, we're going to cut back a little bit. So like you're eating food, you're eating meat, that's good. Now we're going to let's introduce some more vegetables.
Right.
And then once we get through the vegetables, once we start kind of leaning out even more, then it's like, let's start, because most people, I might be wrong, but I think a lot of people that go on the keto diet aren't doing the movement aspect. A lot of them are just like, I'm going to do keto, I'm just going to eat, I'm not going to work out, I'm just going to lose the weight, which is true, you will lose.
Yeah.
But like I think at a certain point, when you start adding vegetables back in, you should feel to a certain point where now you feel a little more healthy and you move around. So let's start moving.
Yeah.
Where it could just be, like you said, a walk, or it could just be some supplementing some things, or going to the gym once or twice a week, nothing crazy. But then you start adding, once you start doing that, you start adding in more carbs to stay with the demand of your energy expenditure. And then what happens is that I think then you get to that balance. Now it's a process that could take a couple years, but I think if you're doing, because the couple people that I have in mind that are doing, I think have had very good success with keto, they're not to the point where I would look at them and say, oh, you're good. Like you've crushed it. Like you are like 100% healthy. I think you're at a point where you still lack the movement. You got to add the movement in. But I think once you start doing that and increase your leafy vegetables, and then you start adding in, add in the rice and potatoes in a few months down the road when you start working out a little bit more. Yeah. Do you agree with all that?
Yeah, and I think that so keto or just a higher fat diet can be really beneficial with like increasing your sensitivity to glucose or insulin, like that whole insulin sensitivity. And if someone's got a lot of blood sugar issues, keto can also be really great because it helps stabilize that. The fats help stabilize that. So rewiring your sensitivity to it, and then that's where working with someone is really important, like you said, because then they can help you slowly add in and say, okay, so you're not really doing a lot of carbohydrates. Let's add some sweet potato or some squash to this meal and just see how you feel. And then you can help find where your like optimal balance is. So saying, all right, I feel really good if I eat high fat and then I add some squashes and carrots or berries around my workout or those things. And then you're getting all those good nutrients in too. But I agree that it can be beneficial for people, but I think a lot of it is they see better blood sugar regulation from eating higher fat. They eliminate all of the processed junk that they could be eating, which and they might also be eliminating some food sensitivities that they don't know they have. So by eliminating those options and narrowing in, I think it's easier. Sometimes I think it's easier for people to make a decision and to choose foods that make them feel good when they say, okay, I technically have this keto label that I gave myself or this vegan label. And so it's easier for them to say, okay, I'm just going to have this, and I can ignore the processed stuff.
Yeah, and kind of to switch topics a little bit. When the Zone diet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I did the Zone diet, it's basically all it was just a quantity. It was kind of like, it was more basically regulating the amount you ate, not necessarily the food you ate.
Yep.
So, which, trust me, the food you ate had to fit in. So eventually that just kind of morphed it into, and when I say a diet, it really was just...
It's a way to structure your meals.
Yeah.
Essentially. So you have like the blocks, right?
Blocks, yeah. Which, I don't want to make it sound more confusing. It's not that hard once you actually start doing it. But one thing I want to... And I don't do it because I think macro counting's better. Mm-hmm. But the one thing... I did have very good success with it. Like, I leaned at, within a month, it was like, holy shit. Like, I had to really start adding stuff in, which is what they said would happen. But the one thing I'm curious to see is their main thing in that was the hormonal effect of balancing a certain amount of protein with a certain amount of carbs at every meal. So it wasn't, and this is something I also try to do, is I don't want to go into my first meal, have a very high protein, no carb, high fat meal, and then all of a sudden I get to the very end of the day and I'm playing like Tetris with numbers.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sitting there being like, well, I got like 20% more protein, 10% more carbs, but 10% fat, or 10. Back up. I speak too quick sometimes. Yeah, rewind. So I have 20 grams of protein left, 10 grams of fat left, but 110 grams of carbs left. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the part where I try to avoid. So what I really do when I'm counting my numbers is I know roughly what I'm going to have, so I will break down each meal roughly. It's not going to be perfect, but I break down each meal and say, okay, I need roughly 35 grams of protein, I need roughly 60 grams of carbs, I need roughly 25 grams of fat.
And that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. So what's your experience with the balance of, like, not just throughout the day, but the balance at each meal? Mm-hmm. I think to me that's important. I've always felt better when I balanced those out versus going crazy on one meal, and then the other meal you got to catch up, and then it just becomes this like swaying of numbers. But I think with the Zone, their main thing were the balance of proteins to carbs. So if you go block per block, it was 7 grams of protein versus 9 grams of carbs. So the balance was roughly like 75, but close to that.
Yeah.
Maybe 80% of the two throughout the day. So you ended up eating roughly 80, whatever your carbs were was about 80% of your protein. Okay. I know people can follow that. I know there's a bunch of math, but it's not that hard. If I put on a piece of paper, you'd be like, oh, that's easy to see. But what's your experience with balancing macros for a hormonal effect?
I'm not necessarily sure about a hormonal effect, but with protein, like you said, I would spread it out throughout the day, because you don't want to be left with 100 or even 70 grams of protein at the end of the day, and you're not going to absorb everything. There's some research that says really like the upper limit would be 40 or 50 grams that you would really absorb at a meal. So spreading out protein throughout the day, aiming for probably at least 20 grams of protein per meal or snack is a really good basis. I feel that the way I structure mine is I set fats further away from my workouts if I'm working out or doing some movement, because they digest slower. So I might structure it so if I'm working out at night, I would go, okay, I might have a heavier fat breakfast, still with some carbohydrates just to keep my blood sugar stable. Because I found for me personally, if I don't have at least a little bit of carbohydrates in my breakfast or in the morning, I kind of like crash and get jittery. So that's just some biofeedback for myself that I have. And some people feel really good. They don't need the carbohydrates in the morning. So I try to structure most of my fats away from my workouts, just so I'm not going in and feeling like really sluggish and weighed down. And then afterwards, I focus still on protein and carbohydrates so that my body can just they're quick digesting, absorbs it, and rebuilds what it needs. If it's someone who really isn't doing a lot of movement, just keeping it even throughout the day. You can even shift it like a little bit, and if you struggle from blood sugar stuff, keep your fats a little higher during the beginning of the day to keep your hunger under control and your cravings under control a little bit. But I think that the 40-30-30 range, 40% carbs, 30% protein and fat, is usually a good range for meals also.
What was that range again?
Just the 40-30-30 is a good balanced way to start.
40 carbs, right? And 30-30, yeah. And I think that was kind of the number that they had mentioned on that. That was kind of, and I think that's a good place to start.
It's a good place to start because everyone's different, so you might realize that might not work for you. But it's a good ballpark. Yeah.
And what's your thoughts on intermittent fasting?
I think so. There's a lot of research that it is really great. I think people see a lot of benefits because they're shortening their time window, right? So that's where people see a lot of the weight loss benefits, and it's not necessarily the intermittent fasting that's doing it, but it's it's harder to eat the same amount in the less amount of time. There's a lot of research that's great for digestion because you give your digestive system a break rather than say you get home and you wake up, you have breakfast, then you have a snack, then you have lunch, then you have a snack, then you have dinner really late, and then you wake up and you have breakfast again. So you're not really like giving it a break to digest and reset. So that can be beneficial, but I personally don't think it's beneficial to be doing every single day, especially for women. Hormonally, it can throw things haywire, or someone who has blood sugar issues. So I wouldn't recommend that. I think that if you're interested in doing one day where you might stretch your fasting window from instead of like 12 hours to 14 or 16. So you just wake up a little later. Maybe it's a weekend day. You wake up a little later. You have a slow morning. You just have some coffee or tea or whatever if it feels good, and then you just eat a little bit later.
Yeah, I have had a couple buddies that tried it. I've never actually fully done intermittent fasting. If I do intermittent fasting, it's like just day gets hectic, and all of a sudden it's 3 o'clock, and I'm like, I haven't ate today, which I would say happens at least once a week, but not planned
but
at all.
But it's not on purpose.
No, not at all.
I think that's, well, maybe it's not being intuitive, but so like I think, and that's where a lot of people see benefits from, right? Those like random 1 days a week, but I wouldn't say doing that every day is a good thing.
I've always just thought like to keep it super simple and basic is just to balance your macronutrients and just eat throughout the day. Like just balance it throughout the day, like not because I think anytime there's a restriction, meaning I can't eat here to here, I can't have this carb or this macronutrient, I can't have like I think if you just like you said, just kind of focus on eating a balanced meal and like eating. I think it takes a little bit of time to understand how much you have to eat, but once you kind of get the idea and you can kind of eyeball a lot of it and go by feel, then it's just like, hey, just make some decent choices and balance it out and you're good. Like I don't like to overcomplicate it. I don't like restrictive diets where it's like, I would like to be able to go into any grocery store and say I can eat anything I want in here. Yeah. And I'm just going to pick based on my knowledge of what makes me feel the best. And usually going for like a crappy source is not going to make you feel the best. Right. So, I mean, even like I'll go get a sub. Like a lot of times I have subs. Like probably there's certain things that people will argue is not the greatest or best, but I look at them like as long as I get it halfway decent. There's some you have vegetables, you have meat, you have bread's your carb source, and depending on what the condiment you put on, it's not terrible. Right. Like I'd rather have that versus going to like I said before, going to like Five Guys or McDonald's or Wendy's. Right. But I eat a lot of Chipotle. Chipotle to me is the easiest thing in the area to have a good, decent meal that's quick and easy and tastes really good. So people know me, I go to Chipotle all the time, but it's just, to me, it's one of the easiest options you can go and I always end up getting double rice because the carbs, you need the carbs. I need the carbs. And people are like, really? I'm like, I have a ton of, I eat a lot of carbs. But now what's your thoughts on eating before working out? Some people do, some people don't.
Yeah.
What's like the time limit before?
It depends. It really
morning workouts versus evenings, things like that.
So morning. So if you're a person who wakes up and goes in the morning, and it depends on what type of workout you're doing. So we'll just take someone who might be going and doing like a CrossFit or going to the gym. And because running's a little different, if you're waking up and going for a
or
long
like
run.
just weightlifting.
Weightlifting, yeah. So I would say getting a little bit of fuel. What I really like to do, because depending on how early your workout is. So if you're one who goes to the 5:30 a.m. class, it is you're not going to wake up and eat a huge breakfast. That's just not, because you won't be able to digest it. So whether you have, I personally like to have. I wake up and I try to have a glass of water with some, like a noon tablet or some electrolytes, just to get a little bit of energy in there. And then I also like to have some like unsweetened coconut water, a little bit of protein powder and coffee, and I blend that up and like sip that on my way to the class. Because that's just the carbohydrates from the coconut water are really easy to digest, and they're not going to like leave you feeling really full. And it just gives you that little bit of a boost with the protein powder, just to like get something in your system. Some people like to have like a banana. I would stick away from fiber, so staying away from like apples or high fiber fruits, just because fiber takes a while to digest. So even like an orange would be great, or cuties or whatever they are. So if you really can't stomach anything in the morning, though, making sure that your dinner the night before has got some good carbohydrates in it, some good protein, because if you're not getting anything in, then your dinner from the night before is fueling your workout in the morning, which is fine, because some people just really can't digest anything in the morning, and it's not always sustainable to wake up and say like, I'm going to wake up an hour before and try to eat something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I usually just like eat a banana real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if bananas doesn't have a lot of fiber though, right?
No, not too much.
Yeah, so I have a banana. If I can, I might just throw some protein in a drink, just like, so I have protein and carbs, no fat, and then I try to do that before if I can. This way, like I wake up and I'll have that like at 5, and then I'm 10 minutes later I'm driving to the gym, or 15 minutes later I'm driving. So, but I think, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
So staying away from fiber, and then you have more wiggle room when you work out later in the day. Like if you're a noon workout person or later in the morning, waking up and having it's always just, you want to just structure carbohydrates and protein around your workouts and fill the fat in elsewhere. And like sometimes, like if it depends on your eating window. So if you can eat like 2 hours before your workout, you've got a little more room with fats than if you've got an hour before your workout.
When we talked about it before, I usually broke my day down when I was working out kind of like evening time, like 4:35, 36:30 in that range. I would go breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Yep.
Actually, I did the opposite. I went before and after working out, which was usually like, for me, our dates they have fiber in them. It's probably not the best one to eat. I used to eat a lot of dates because they were just kind of like sugary, but they were easy to eat.
I don't think dates have as much as like prunes.
Okay,
so I think you're prunes, but
I
love dates.
Yeah, so I had dates before and I'd have dates after, which is probably a lot of sugar, which is probably more than I should have. But I had both those right around the workout time, and whatever that brought my numbers down to, I literally just divided that by all of them by 3 and that was breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yep.
So I tried to balance those, knowing that I had and I would pretty much get spot on most of them. If not, within reason, I might leave more for dinner. It was after my workout versus. Maybe my lunch was a little smaller, or my breakfast was a little smaller, but that was my system. Again, being inconsistent with like the gym and stuff, and going to the gym early in the morning kind of takes away a little bit of that, because I'm not going to eat that, then eat something after, and then come home and rush to have breakfast and then go out for the day. So a lot of that stuff is broken down. So now all of a sudden I need to have bigger main meals, and that's the hard part is like lunch. I'm not having ding 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 it's very tough. So. But the lifting, I always felt very good. The lady I was talking to that was helping me out, that was my thing. I'd go from like lunch, I'd do 4 to 5 hours of nothing, go work out, come home, and then eat dinner. And she was like, you got 4 or 5 hours you're not eating. She goes, your body's like shutting down. So at that point, I'd get to the gym and I was just very sluggish because I wasn't eating enough and I wasn't eating. So she was like, introduce like a pre-meal. It was something very simple. It was like a snack kind of thing, but I felt great. Like I'd go in the gym and I was like ton of energy.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of the same. I don't even know what I weigh right now. If you were to ask me, I've been saying 175 for 5 years because I don't think I've
Right.
really gained any weight or lost any weight, but I really don't know what I weigh. I usually go by number one, performance, how I feel, and number two is the eye test. Like what do your body physically look like? If like both of those are halfway decent, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like scale, I don't even know if we have a scale at my house, to be honest.
Well, and the scale's really not, like, you talked about BMI a little bit, but it's really not, the scale's not reflective of anything, of muscle.
You would be considered overweight, I would think.
Yeah,
'Cause
100%.
I'm definitely overweight, and I wouldn't say I'm not the obese one, but there's guys that are considered obese that are in very good shape just because of the body
just
mass.
muscle, right, and height wise. So yeah, if you've got two people like how we have a lot of muscle on, then 100% BMI would be overweight. But we're not overweight. But that's where.
Well, are you still lifting quite a bit right now? Mm-hmm. Are you still like really into the ollie lifting?
Yeah. We have a competition coming up Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, cool. So how has your body fluctuated from probably before you started to where you are now, and how many weeks in are you right now?
I think we're on
how's your thumbs doing?
Oh, I have like a little like permanent bruise
I
there.
I say that just because anybody that does ollie lifting with the hook grip and stuff, like
yeah.
You do you tape a lot?
I don't.
Oh really? I
I
always
honestly
tape.
don't tape. I used to because it would peel.
Yeah, that was to avoid the blisters.
Yeah. And I've never had like the permanent blood blister right there.
Yep.
And
that's what I was referring to. You had the blood blisters right on the knuckle there, or inside knuckle.
The worst one is we just started, I know we're like digressing a little bit, but we just started doing, I think we're on week 13, I think. But we're just doing deadlifts, like added those into our cycle right now, but they're like the clean grip.
Overhand, yep. Clean grip.
So without switch gripping.
Kind of practicing that pull from the floor. Yep.
And we're working up 10 rep maxes. So
a lot of time under tension.
Yeah. And I like took my thumbs off and I was like, oh my God.
Were you hook gripping?
Yeah, because we got a hook grip to practice the clean grip or whatever. And I'm like completely butchering whatever it was. And
no, you're right. Yeah.
But so I like opened my hands and they were like purple and white because like there was so much weight just being put on them. But I've never deadlifted with like the straps or anything that might help.
Yeah, the straps. When I made straps. It was funny. I actually made because I was like sitting there like you can make like if you go online and buy like straps, they're probably like $20 or something like that. Like you can buy like $10 worth of material and just make like 4 or 5 straps. So I made straps for deadlifting, which were longer, and I made straps for ollie lifting, which allow you to kind of release a little bit. Okay. And it was funny, like I kind of made them, and I didn't really get into like a full cycle with them. Yeah. They definitely help when you're deadlifting a ton of weight and you're trying to hold on, because usually people's grips.
That's what happens. The grip goes.
But I definitely don't rely on them. And with like the strap aspect of it, I did those more for like snatch pulls and clean pulls, because like when you're lifting above and beyond your max. Like, if you're doing that with snatching, like, just because it's a great motion and great movement, but your grip and usually your thumb is about ready to pop off your hand. Yeah. Because you're not doing one lift, you're doing like sets of 3, and all of a sudden, like, good Lord. Like, I've had it before where your thumbs are just hurting so bad, like, I just don't even want to grab the bar anymore. You can't
grip the bar.
But again, I'm not a high level lifter. I'm sure those people have been calloused over more times than they care to. Like, I've lost my calluses, unfortunately. But so where are you right now with your lifting, and how has your body changed over the 13? Because you're obviously, I know you're eating differently.
I'm eating a lot more food.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry.
No,
I'll ask you a question after.
Okay. So I would say this is definitely the strongest and most muscular I've ever been. But I had to eat a lot more food. I had to add in a lot more carbohydrates just to be fueling those workouts. My protein and my fat stayed pretty much the same. I just upped carbohydrates a lot. And right now I'm experimenting with some carb cycling, which is kind of fun. So I have...
Can you just explain that?
Yeah, so pretty much I'm just trying to focus most of my carbohydrates around my workouts and putting fats throughout the rest of the day. And then also... so that's what I was doing. And then now I'm kind of experimenting with, okay, if I'm not working out, I've got kind of like a lower calorie day, and then if I'm working out and doing more volume, then I've got a higher one. And so just kind of cycling that and seeing what that does just for fun. But the biggest thing I had to do was add a lot more carbohydrates in to refuel that way. And I've definitely increased a lot of muscle mass. I mean, I'm sure my weight's gone up, but I'm also lifting heavier weights. Like I've put on at least 10 pounds on a lot of my lifts. So it's good, and you've got to be eating to be putting muscle on.
And I'm sure with you eating and like weight gain, you gain a little, like people with gaining weight gain, like yes, you'll put on some body fat, but to be honest, like what I always looked at when I was doing this, like when I gained 15 pounds, there's probably 10 pounds of that might have been body fat, 5% might have been muscle. Does that sound, that probably right? Maybe I'm off a little bit on that. Yeah. That was my ballpark, because when I ended up kind of losing a lot, because when I lost it, I just really lost like body fat. The muscle kind of stayed. So, but the idea is like, even to me, even if you get a little more fluffier, you really don't feel that way. Like I just felt like really strong. Like you felt like a brick house. And I don't think anybody, if you're lifting a lot of weight, is going to look at you and be like, you're a little tubby. Like they're going to look at you and be like, holy crap, you're just like thick and strong. Yeah. Because that's the one thing I've noticed. Like, I mean, you're sitting down now, so I don't like see everything, but like your shoulders look wider. Yeah. You know what I mean? You just look, you look thicker in a good way, meaning like stronger. Yeah. You know, I don't look at, if anybody's met Emily, she's in very good shape. But if you're like, nobody would look at you and be like, oh my God, she's let herself go. Like, they look at you and you're like, man, you look really really strong right now. So I think that's one of the benefits of it. And obviously, I think what you're gonna love it probably once you're done the cycle, because you're gonna be like, I'm just gonna kind of go back to like a maintenance thing, and you're gonna actually be way better for it, right? Because you're gonna lose, if you've gained any body fat, it's gonna strip off very quickly, and you'll get super lean, but keep a lot of the strength gains, which will be cool, right? Which is the nice part about cycling, and I think that's where I've really enjoyed the Olympic lifting, is adding that in, because then it's hard to, not hard to add muscle in CrossFit, but it kind of is. It's kind of hard to focus just on that strength, because you've got the high intensity of it, so you're still burning. I always felt the CrossFit from a standpoint of, I think everything. I'm talking about. That's what I do is CrossFit, and I think. But like, if you take the lifting portion of it, when I was lifting a lot, I wasn't doing a lot of like the more cardiovascular Metcon things like that. Yeah. I was very much focused on increasing my weight, eating to increase my strength, that kind of stuff. Afterwards, when I got to like the January through February, March, I was really focusing on increasing my athletic performance, not necessarily increasing my weight, because that or like lifting, that pretty much stayed. But now it made, moving weights in a Metcon much easier. And it made, whatever the weight was, you could move it multiple times much quicker. So now my old 1%, I could now move, almost every minute on the minute kind of thing. So, you're getting stronger and you're able to move. And then, like, I know it even sounds crazy, like, when you're doing a Fran, when you have lightweight thrusters, well, some people, right now, that would, for that amount of reps, would be a struggle for me. Back then, it was like, because your legs were so strong and arms, like, you could power through that very quick, and all of a sudden those extra rests you were taking, or maybe dropping the bar, you were going unbroken. Yeah. And then, so that would increase your overall work output. So I think anybody that you do have to have a certain amount of cycling involved. Like you do have to have, I think you do need to have a strength portion, and I think you need to focus on the strength portion. You're not going to get unfit. Like, yes, will you maybe be a little bit slower? Potentially, but it's like taking one step back to go two steps forward. And I think you do need to have that. I think you need to have time spent devoted to a weakness, or devoted to something, devoted to gymnastics, devoted to running. Like, definitely. But I agree, if you're lifting weights, or in CrossFit, if you're trying to get big, you can get big in CrossFit. Right. You can. You just, it's how you, people in CrossFit do the same thing. If you're going to go to Eclipse and power lift, you can power lift at our gym just as well. The weights are all there. We have all the everything you would need to do the same kind of routines. We don't have the machine, so if you're going to sit there and do leg extensions, no, we're not going to do that. But you have all the stuff for free weights and for big compound lifts. But you have to put your focus on there. Like if you go to any gym and put your focus there, that's what you're going to. If you go and just come to our gym and all you want to do is do pull-ups and swing on the rings and do like stuff, you will get extremely good at that. Right. You won't be super strong, but you'll get extremely good at that. So it's a balance. But I think like you're lifting right now, you're putting more focus and priority on a certain category, which to me is going to benefit you tremendously in about 2-3 months.
Yeah. And I already feel it too. So it's like this past week we did like a workout and it was like 95-pound like hang cleans were in it or something. And I like, as I was doing it, I'm like, okay, it was like a 21-15-9 with pull-ups and then like ab mat sit-ups or something. And like a year ago, maybe even 6 months ago, like the 95 would have slowed me down a lot. But I'm building that strength right now enough to be like, okay, now I can move some weight and I can move that weight even if it's kind of heavy quicker. And then my cardio has kind of suffered a little bit. Like I still have I personally just still have a good basis of cardio just because I've built it up for so long. And that's, my times have definitely gone down on that a little bit. But when, like you're saying, so when my focus starts to shift away again from the Olympic lifting, then I have all this muscle that I'm going to be able to put towards moving quicker or all that stuff.
Yeah. Like I always thought the best cycle that I would have done, and again, this is just my head, I did it one time ever in my life, and that was the time I told you about 4 or 5 years ago. What I did was I did more of the power lifting. I did basically a lot of squatting, deadlifting, things like that to build a very solid foundation of just strength. Then I went into the ollie lifting. I took that strength. I took, stronger legs, stronger press, arms, shoulders, things like that. And I translated it into faster, quicker, more technical movement of weight while still focusing on the strength portion of it. But with stronger legs, I could clean, I could jerk, I could snatch. I wasn't having any problem. My pulls were stronger because of my deadlifting. All that would now translate, and I got super strong. And then I cut that out, and I say cut it out, but I started to prioritize more on the general, just conditioning piece while keeping the strength because I had built up my strength. Now, did it go down a little bit? Yeah, but not like a ton.
You didn't lose it all.
Not even close. I mean, what if you talk about the 100% I gained, I probably lost maybe 5 to 10% of that. Like I was still very close to where I was before, but I had increased my conditioning, which doesn't take long to increase. You can do that over a month or two, max.
Right.
And then worked on like some gymnastic stuff and was, PR'd everything. Across the board, everything. And it was just funny how just focusing on prioritizing stuff and really giving your focus to do that and not, it's kind of like anything. If you have 1,000 things on your plate and trying to do all of them at one time and it has all of your attention, all your attention is now spread too thin. You're never going to accomplish anything. If you focus on one thing, execute on it, go to the next thing, execute on it, all of a sudden you've done very good at multiple tasks in order. And that's what I think you're doing. If you go crush this and then move on to the next thing and crush that and move on to the next thing, all of a sudden you're going to be like, holy crap, Emily is phenomenal because you put the time and focus into certain aspects. And I think that's cool. That's the best way to do it. Like I said, if I would do, that's how I would go about that.
I'm really excited that I had the opportunity to do it because I had the dance background of the mobility, so I understood and moved well. But getting the strength wasn't there and I also have the flexibility where like sometimes it's almost puts me in the wrong spot because my body can
over flexible.
So like that's where like deadlifts I struggle or those things like my hips shoot back. Same with like squats. Like it just, so having the opportunity to just sit there and focus on this. And so it's like, it's me and 2 other girls from the gym who are doing it. And all of our lifts have gone up. We've all PR'd a ton and it's awesome. Like we just did heavy back squats and one of the girls like one of them surpassed her 1 rep and then like I was like 5 pounds 10 pounds underneath for 3 of my 1 rep. So it's like it's cool because then I'm like, okay, that's all going to transfer somewhere eventually.
And I think one, weight training with partners is phenomenal. When I did most of this stuff,
it makes a big difference.
I was lifting. I always have, like, usually when we do like a strength cycle, a lot of times we'll get multiple guys together to do it just because it keeps us accountable. Even if we may not be doing it at the same class, somebody be like, hey, did you hit this today? And they'd be like, yeah, I know I'm hitting it tonight. I hit it this morning, whatever. So at least you're like, all right, well, I can't fall behind because then I'm going to be behind these guys. And then you feel like the loner. So, but I think the strength portion of it, I mean, the other aspect for you is I've seen on your Instagram, like, your technique has gotten much better. I remember when I was doing like an Ollie cycle, and it only went like 8 to 10 weeks. It wasn't super. You're much farther
ours
along.
Is like 19 weeks. I think, total,
which I would have loved to have done that. Yeah. So this was more of a modified version, but like in that time, my technique was phenomenal. Like, I mean, I'd say phenomenal. From where it was before was totally different. And it was funny because you're not using your max weight. You're using percentages. Like, all of a sudden you're doing stuff at 70, 60, 70, 80% of your maxes. Well, at that point, you're not going to miss the lift.
Right.
So you focus more on, I'm going to focus on the technique more so than, man, I don't know if I can get this weight overhead or, or whatever. So I got really good at like setting up, and I got really good, setting up positioning and working on little minor things like adjusting like, the tension in your lats and your back and stuff, and engaging certain aspects and really focusing on being in correct positioning. And then it got to the point where when you actually were doing it, it was like, I'm just dialed in. Like I'm hitting my marks. I'm hitting positionings. I'm the weight is now like
flying.
It was funny because when you're talking about like PRing, like you PR throughout the program. It's not like you got to wait till week 19 to PR. Like you're PRing 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks into this thing, and then all of a sudden it's like, holy crap! Like now I'm going off of like PR numbers just as like training numbers because I've just blown through that ceiling.
Which is nice, but it's
intimidating. But you're like,
oh my god, I just had to add, like last week I was doing whatever number, and then I just had to add 10 pounds to my percentages, which like sucks, but it's awesome.
And you can do it because obviously the program's been written for people to actually accomplish, but a lot of it is mental. Like all of a sudden you're like, I can't, especially when you look at it at the very beginning, and all of a sudden you look, maybe it's got 8 weeks of numbers kind of already planned out, or whatever, 5, 6 weeks, and you're looking at like week 6 or 7, you're like, what? No, I can't do that. But it's like, you gotta remember, like you will get there. Yeah. But it's intimidating. But all of a sudden, the days you get there, you're like, holy crap!
Did I just do that?
Okay. And I think that's one of the benefits. And well, the good thing is it shows about when you commit to something for a long time, how well you can, I guess how well you can actually do by pushing all your, really putting your time and energy into something.
Patience.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, patience. Like it's not. Like a 19-week Ollie cycle, like you were committed. That's almost 5 months.
No. We started in January, so it might not be 19.
Pretty darn close. I mean, you're
so 5.
You're about 16 weeks. I mean, if you're going into May, you'll be right around 20 weeks.
Yeah. So I guess I didn't realize it. I guess I never looked at it in months. So it was a long time there. So we do 3 days a week. Of just specific Ollie lifting that we meet for like an hour and a half. And Aaron, who does the coaching, he creates it all, but we don't see anything until the week of. So like, I don't know what I'm doing. I have an idea of what we're going to do this week at this point, but I don't know exactly.
You don't know numbers or rep scheme kind of deal? Yeah. You probably know more movement. Like, I know I'm going to front squat. I'm gonna overhead.
Yeah, I'll be like, I know
snatch balance or something.
Yeah, Mondays I'm like, okay, I know that we're working on specifically snatches and then clean and jerks and then heavy squats and then like abs, and then Thursdays will be like snatch balances and jerks or whatever from the rack, and then deadlifts or whatever the cycle that's been on because we've gone through a few, and then Saturdays are kind of, I don't know what we're gonna do, but.
Do you guys have jerk boxes? Those are so nice. If you have
know.
Them.
We just got Michelle, the woman who owns CrossFit Monadnock, got not like the wooden boxes, but she got the things that go over the weights. Do you know what I'm talking about? They're like the metal ones.
Yep.
I think those are on our list to get though, because those are really nice.
Yeah, jerk boxes I think are phenomenal. Just they're safer and saves a lot of time.
Yeah, and you're not setting. You don't have to set whatever heavy weight you're lifting either right back on your back, which like I hate with snatch balances when you've got to lower it down, or if you're going for a heavy jerk and you can just drop it.
It's just safety and more efficient. I really like those. I think those are cool. They're I mean, you can make your own, or they're pricey to buy, but I think they're totally worth it. Like I remember the program I was on was kind of fun because it was 5 days a week, but it was...
So were you just specifically Ollie lifting? You weren't CrossFitting?
But it balanced. So it was like, you might squat on Monday, Wednesday, Friday kind of deal. Or no, actually it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, skip Friday, Saturday. I always move the Thursday to Friday just because of my time. But I just remember on Friday, a lot of it was build up to a heavy. Mm-hmm. So like all week you do percentages. And on Saturday, it was always, you're going to do some type of squatting, whether it's front or back, mm-hmm. whatever the week called for. Relatively heavy. I mean, you weren't maxing, but you were going pretty heavy. And then it would go into, okay, we're now going to go snatchings first, right? So usually, mm-hmm. so you would work up to a heavy snatch for the day, not a mm-hmm. PR, but heavy. So go and like the amount of Saturdays I PR'd on my snatch just going heavy,
right?
Where it was like, holy crap, like a PR didn't feel like I was overexerting myself. Yeah. And then you do the same on the clean and jerk, and you're like, okay. This is really cool.
Yeah.
But I don't forget what program it was, but I like the flexibility where it allowed you to kind of go a little bit off of the percentages and kind of wing it a little bit, mm-hmm. but go by feel.
Yeah.
And some Saturdays it was like you just didn't have it, and like, mm-hmm. but you were working up to like 90% still, which was like
still heavy,
which is still heavy, but it was just funny. Like you wouldn't. I mean, it was like 90% of maybe your previous 1 rep max, mm-hmm. or maybe you'd get close to your 1 rep max, which wasn't your max anymore, but it was still. All of a sudden, if like that's my like off day heavy, I'll take it. You know what I mean? Right. So it was still kind of cool, and I think it was just fun because then every Saturday you had a chance to really like. It was almost like it kind of scratched that itch of wondering where you were at without being like waiting 4, 5, 6 weeks before you could kind of test that.
Test the PR without the pressure of testing it of like, and that's where like I love the Ollie lifting because I'm like, okay, we're consistently working up to at least like say 85-90% and hitting those consistently. So it's like I'm not nervous going up to an 85-pound snatch anymore and thinking like, okay, I might miss it because I'm just not paying attention to something, but I'm not nervous about the weight.
Yeah,
which is cool.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you focus more on technique, and
mm-hmm.
then what I found too is when I was trying to actually go for the PR, even though you knew it was heavy and you were kind of straining a little more, I was still more focused on my technique mm-hmm. and positioning mm-hmm. and my engagement versus how heavy the weight was on the bar.
Yeah.
Because like then it was just ingrained, like go through the same setup and mm-hmm. really just load it and just basically try to trust that you were strong enough
to pull
that when you actually did the pull and the, or whatever on the clean, like you were able to still stay true to the mm-hmm. positioning and not like go into bad habits because you were trying to do something stupid, which you
shouldn't be.
Exactly. So I think that was one of the benefits of I don't know. Ollie lifting's fun.
It's really fun.
Like people have never done it before. I know I don't know. It's just there's a lot really to get out of a quick movement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think
mm-hmm.
that's part of it. Technique. Like, trust me, I like squatting and deadlifting like anybody else, or benching here and there. But to me, cleaning and snatching is just more fun.
Yeah.
I think there's just that element of you got to be kind of on to get it. Like
mm-hmm.
you can kind of. Within reason, a squat or a deadlift, you can usually kind of work your way through with
mm-hmm.
like not perfect or all there. Now, obviously, if you're going for a PR, that's not the same, but like you're normally going to try. You can get 80-90% up most of the time just through sheer like because it's a slower movement.
Right.
Ollie lifting or something, one little false move,
mm-hmm.
not going to happen.
Right.
You good time wise or what?
We probably
up?
Should wrap it up soon.
Okay. So, anything else you want to talk about? That we kind of went from health all the way to lifting to
it's fine.
to not ripping on, just saying our viewpoints on keto. But no, it's all good. I think it was fun. Emily, again, where can people find you, follow you?
Yeah, so
I'll try to put these in the show notes again. I know we had it on the last episode, but
we'll put them back in. So. Instagram, Emily Alexander Nutrition LLC. Facebook, Nutrition by Emily. My website's www.emilyalexandernutrition.com. I do offer like in-person and online nutrition services, so whether that's macro help or just generalized nutritional help. I think that's about it. My email is emilyalexandernutrition@gmail.com.
And you can do this remotely too, mm-hmm, right? For the most part. I mean, obviously probably with phone calls or Skypes or FaceTimes or whatever you got to do. But
so if you're a distance person, phone calls, Skypes, email, all that's nutrition consulting options. So
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, guys, reach out to Emily. She is super knowledgeable. hopefully I didn't dummy it down too much for my lack of it, but she's an extremely smart young lady. And again, we'll put all of her stuff in the show notes. So for Emily and myself, that is episode 24 of the Gaelan Trombley Show. We're out. Thanks for listening to the Gaelan Trombley Show. If you want to reach me, you can go on Facebook at Gaelan Trombley, on Instagram at Gaelan Trombley, and on YouTube at Gaelan Trombley. The spelling, GaelanTrombley.